Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an IFBB pro bodybuilder. Today's guest is Tonio, the Mutant Burton. Tonio, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, nice to be here. Appreciate you guys.
For sure, my man, and I appreciate you taking some time out of your full day just to chop it up with myself. Tonio, the first question I have for you is, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
Few favorites. I'll have to go with Ronnie Coleman. He's someone I wish I actually could have seen, up close in person, because how freakishly he looked. I can only imagine what it looked like in person. And then Dexter Jackson would have to be another. Seeing Dexter and how everyone would compare the structure of Dexter with mine is another thing that motivated me to keep lifting. Like, oh, I could look like that. Like, why not? So Dexter would have to be another one. And from the few times I have met Dexter, super humble, super quiet dude, and full of knowledge as well. Now newer, I'll have to go with Derek Lunsford, a very humble guy. Sean Carita. He told his story about how he was always too small for everything, and seeing what he's done, it lets people know that there's no such thing as too small. You put your mind to it, you can do it. So I very respected you.
Awesome, my man. The second question, Tonio, that I have for you is, at what age did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
I didn't start lifting weights until high school, actually. And that was just because high school football, that's when strength and conditioning comes in.
So I want to kind of transition into your upbringing a little bit. That I kind of like to always get the backstory of my guests, just because that's kind of the gist behind the muscles. Like, we kind of see everything on social media, right? We see the bodybuilders and the fitness athletes and the muscle and all of that, but there's always a story. So, and the story obviously always begins with birth and childhood. So if you don't mind sharing with us, Tonio, where did you grow up? Talk about your childhood, talk about, the sports that you played, and just maybe some of those events or experiences that helped shape your younger years.
I grew up in Reno, Nevada, and that's where I am currently. I went to Hook High School, and I was an athlete. I ran track, played football, and football was my dream. That was like, where I'm from, that's every kid's dream. We were all told, to grow up, be football players. I mean, I remember playing Pop Warner and my uncles telling me, all I want is, this when you make it. All I want is that when you make it. And I remember getting into high school and actually trying it out my sophomore year. And I didn't want to play football anymore. I just wanted to run track. And I remember there was football practice and I didn't show up. And I was at my friend's house and there was a knock at the door. And it's one of my friends. What's he doing here? He goes, hey, Stallworth, our head football coach, he's in the car right now. He said, come on. So I was ready to run out the back door, but he takes me back up to the school, takes me to his office, and they're talking to me about everything and saying the potential I have and that I should do it, but I didn't want to play. So I was kind of pushed into doing it. I'm glad I did do it though, because as far as I got with it, going to college and playing or getting a chance to practice for Green Bay before hurting myself, that's something not everyone could say they did. After that, coming back to Reno, bodybuilding was starting because, people told me to do it. My coach now was actually the first person to tell me to compete and that I'll be great at it. But I was like, no, I'm just focused on getting big. And around that time, I was also gang affiliated. And so that was who I was as a kid, very active, aggressive kid. My mom would tell me all the time, like, you need to stop, dude, or, you're going to end up somewhere and I'm not going to know. So it was, she had a rough time with me growing up. And then it wasn't until my first son was born where I stopped everything. And he doesn't know it, or even know what I mean by it, but that's like my angel right there. You know, he saved me from a lot. I have a lot of friends who've passed away. My younger brother, he passed away from gang violence because he was gang affiliated, and it sucked because I couldn't tell him, you know, it's stupid, don't do it, you're dumb, it's wrong, be better, because then now I'm a hypocrite because he just watched me do it. And by the time we were trying to pull him away from it, he was already too far in. So he was in and out of prison as well. And when I was always around him, he would brag to his friends about how big I was and how big I was getting. And he wanted to start boxing to get in sports as well. So that kind of pushed me more to keep bodybuilding. And after he passed, I was like, I'm gonna still live that life for him. You know, so I wish he was here to see it. And but around that time, like, you know, it just kind of got distant from the whole family. You know, I see my mom sick. She went from 130 pounds to 98 pounds in a month. You know, just stressed out. So couldn't see her like that. So I stayed away. It was hard growing up, and you know, even trying to transition to the bodybuilding thing after all that happened. But once, you know, my little brother passed, 2-3 weeks before he did, my best friend passed. And you know, 2 weeks after he did, my other friend passed away, all from gang violence. So it was hard for a while. But you know, getting into bodybuilding, staying in the gym, staying, you know, focused, it doesn't make you forget, but it helps you cope better. So that's another reason why, you know, bodybuilding it's a savior for me.
Now, I appreciate you touching on some of that stuff that's kind of tough for you to talk about, Tony. I want to take just a one step back to when you were a little bit younger. You know, what do you think that anger came from? I mean, did you have a kind of a tough home environment, or where do you think that anger came from? And then, you know, was that something that really caused you a lot of issues, you know, when you were younger, middle school, high school? Did you get in a lot of trouble or not?
Yeah, I in school, no. I mean, I know if I did it in school, my mom would be out there with a switch. So never in school. But sometimes you didn't want to go home because, you know, my mom's ex-husband, he wasn't the best. Just, you know, he'll work and then he'll drink a lot and then he'll go out, and the next thing we hear him arguing. We'll hear things in the room crashing, and you know, and me being the oldest boy in the house, I felt like it was, you know, on me to protect my mom. And a few times I've actually fought her ex-boyfriend when I was in, you know, middle school, high school as well. I think that's a big part of why I was, you know, more of this aggressive kid. I didn't pick on people, you know, like being a bully or anything like that, but it was just one of those things where I had a lot of anger built up. And when things happened, I would hyperventilate. There was multiple times where, you know, ambulances coming, getting me, you know, the oxygen mask and the lemon flavored sugar they have to loosen up the muscles again. Yeah, all that. So I think that was a big part to it. And only doing football was the only, I guess, aggressive sport because I was doing. So it just wasn't releasing enough aggression for me. So I tried basketball, but it's not, that wasn't for me.
So I want to talk about the gang stuff, because that is definitely a unique you know, experience that you have that obviously I don't, and I don't think any of my other guests up to this point have had that experience. What kind of pulled you into that life? And you know, what we kind of think of gang life as something negative, and I think probably overall it's fair to say that it is pretty negative, but I think there can be some positives from that type of a family environment. So what pulled you into the gang life, and then what are actually some positive things that you think you actually took away from those experiences, Tonio?
My older sister, she was gang affiliated. She was in Mexican gang, and they would always be around the house. You know, they called my mom. You know, and we would always see, you know, them just hanging out. Nothing bad. It just looked like they were having fun. So I think that's what made it seem like, oh, this is cool. You know, you just have a group of friends who are just with you. And her same gang, actually, you know, their little brothers were around my age. So we all grew up to just hanging out. And them being in the gang and me just being affiliated with them is what brought me in. But as far as the negatives, I mean, I can't say I really was involved with the negative things that they were doing. That's something, you know, they keep to themselves. But the positives that came out of it was everything that I've seen and everything that I've done or everything that I've been through. My boys don't have to experience it to know. So, you know, both my kids, I can tell them, hey, look, this is what's going to go down if you do, you know, blase, blase. And so I think that's why I don't regret any of it, is because it happened to me, so they don't have to go through it. That's how I look at it.
Absolutely, man. That's why I asked you, because a lot of times in life, Tonio, we, we see something or we hear about something and we label it right away as negative. But, you know, if we have that mindset and that openness to even take things that are difficult or maybe they are negative, there can be some positivity pulled out of it, right? So that's why I wanted to ask you now. You mentioned football, and I like to ask this question because it's always interesting to hear what my guests say. But when you were a younger kid, when you kind of just like had some peace and quiet in your in your mind and to yourself, what did you want to be when you grew up? And then, you know, how did football kind of take you in a direction in terms of college?
Oh, as a kid growing up, before I even got into sports, we would there's this park out here. It's called Pat Baker Park, and that's what people consider the ghetto out here. But you know, back when I was a kid, there was like corner stores and a barber shop around there, and at the park it was nothing but drug dealers. Like you just see them running to the cars, you know, do their thing, come back. But you see these same guys with nice clothes, jewelry, girls, cars, you know, loud music, flashy. And I mean, what kid wouldn't want to drive a car with 26-inch rims on it? It's a monster truck now, you know? So that's kind of where it was like, as much as my mom wanted to pull us from it, I mean, that was a park right down the street from my house, so we're always going to see it. And I think she noticed the attention I was giving it and getting from them giving me money to go get my hair cut, to go get food, whatever, that my uncle was actually going to adopt me. And when that was starting, that's when I got into football. So I started playing football when I was about 8 years old, 9 years old. And then my uncle just took me under his wing. So even though my mom had, you know, a husband, my uncle is my father. Like we still, you know, talk every day, he checks on me every day. That's my, yeah, that right there.
So you mentioned college and football in college. So talk about the opportunity that you had to go to college and play football. Where did you go? What was that experience like?
I graduated high school in 2009. I didn't go, I tried to go to junior college in 2011. But it didn't go through because I already had my firstborn. And, you know, time with them was rough. So I came back and I didn't end up going to college till 2014 now. So, you know, 5 years later. And, you know, I'm telling everyone I'm play football and everyone's like, yeah, right. You're too old. That's not going to work. These dudes are fresh out and you're old. And I remember going to play college football at Feather River and I ended up starting. I played 5 games before I had micro tears in my Achilles. And from those 5 games, I was lead rusher in the nation, all NorCal, all first or American first team, you know, all these crazy awards. And I had scholarships or offers right away and visits and everything coming in already. Not even playing the season. I remember, I want to say it was Idaho came to watch us practice. And I wasn't practicing. And he asked the coach, he goes, why isn't he practicing? What's going on? Coach was like, we don't let him. And why not? Because we need him. So, so he performs in the games the way he does without practicing. And I would practice, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We played on Saturdays, but I knew the turn on the switch. And so I don't know, college was fun for me. And then 2016, I came back and I got a scholarship to a Division II school, the Reddies. And I ended up going to Division II because my clock had already started, so I couldn't go Division I. So I went to Arkansas, Arkadelphia, and played with the Reddies. And then leaving there, because an agent reached out to me and he was like, dude, you're older. Like when you have a talent, but when it comes to, NFL, it's liability issues now. Is how much years can you produce? So that's what made me walk away from college completely and just go right into that. And he ended up getting me a workout with Green Bay, but I ended up tearing my hamstring running the 40. And all through college, it would happen, and we'd do cortisone shots. So after that, I just knew it was like, it's done. It's not going to come back. It's time to walk away.
Excellent, man. So when you were kind of in college and you had your first child and everything, obviously there's, especially when you have a kid, there's bills to be paid. There's, you got to take care of, yourself and your family. Were you kind of working, like a part-time job, or what were you trying to pursue in terms of a degree? And what were you thinking about in regards to making money once college was all done?
I got my degree in criminal justice. When I would go to school, it'd only be for the semester, or I would go to college in another state when it was this season of the sport I was playing. Outside of that sport, I would come back and go to a community college where I would work and then, be able to provide. So being a police officer was my goal. And then that kind of faded. I tried out a few times, but because of who my little brother was and my sister, I kept getting denied because being so close to them still. And then I'm actually going back to school because I'm getting my bachelor's in Homeland Security. So it's not done, education. Bodybuilding is good, but I need that, that real degree.
For sure, man. I love that, dude. That's so encouraging. And that's going to be a great example for your kids as well, Tonio, because at some point the bodybuilding ends for everybody, right? We can obviously continue to lift weights and train, but the competitive side usually ends at some point for everybody. Now, let's talk about bodybuilding, man, because that's why we're here, right? And you said earlier that bodybuilding basically it's saved you, right? So why don't we talk about that? Talk about when the football stuff was over. You mentioned your current coach is the one that actually first kind of came up to you and said, hey, why don't you think about bodybuilding? But why don't you talk about how this gentleman, this individual, your current coach, came up to you? How did they approach you? And let's just talk about the process of you getting into competitive bodybuilding.
I just saw, it was funny. I was actually at the gym, working out, and I walked past his wife, and she stopped me first. She was like, do you compete? I was like, no. And she's talking to me. She was like, dude, you look great. You look phenomenal. You should compete. Like, do it. I'm like, nah, it's okay. Then her husband walks over. And he's like, and she tells him, he's like, yeah, let me coach you. Like, let me just do a show for you. And I kept denying it. I just want to get big. That's all. I'm just here to live. Pretty much. I'm just trying to distract myself. And I remember I went to a nutrition shop in Reno, Phil's Discount Nutrition, and he told me, hey, you should do a show. I'll sponsor you and I'll give you free supplements. And I was like, well, who doesn't like free? So, okay, let's do it. And it was an NPC motherload. I ended up doing that. I won the show, won overall. And it was like, wow, crazy seeing all the people in the crowd just, screaming and yelling. And I was like, oh, I think I like this. And then I went to a show in Canada. It was a pro amateur show. I'm new to bodybuilding. I do not know what this means. And so everyone's telling me, oh, it's a small show, dude. You might turn pro. I'm like, well, turn pro my second show? That's crazy. Don't know what this means, but all right. So we do this show, and no coach. I just, went in, and I ended up getting third. And I was bummed out. I was like, oh, I hate this. I'm done with this sport. It's like everyone's telling me, like, dude, you got third place at your first pro amateur show. Like, that's amazing. And so I took that year off, and the following year I did Simpson Showdown. Where I won that show, did the overall, took the overall, and Simpson paid for my way to go to USA's. Well, when I was walking out of the gym after Simpson, my coach walks up to me and he was like, "You look good at Simpson." I was like, "Oh, thank you, I appreciate it." He goes, "But let me make you look good for nationals." Goes, I don't want anything. I just want to help you get it. He's like, "Just post about it." So I was like, "All right." So he takes me under his wing. He starts coaching me, and we do USA's. I wasn't favored to win. It was Michael Cleves, favorite to win. And my coach, I remember my coach telling me, prejudging's done. You're fighting for first and second. Just so you know, they're not just going to give it to you. And I was kind of lost. Like, what does that mean? And he told me who this guy was, Michael Cleves. He took second to Derek Lunsford, years prior. So he's like, it's going to be a dogfight. You got to do it and go all out. And finals come. I remember them calling my number last to get that, first place win and get my pro card. And after that, me and my coach just stuck together ever since. He knows my body to, better than I do it. So, yeah.
So Tonio, what year was your first competition?
In 2018.
2018, and then you competed in how many shows before you got your IFBB pro card?
3.
3?
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it. So good. See, that's the thing. Like when you have the opportunity to get your IFBB pro card that quickly, like that is like solidifying, like the potential that you have, which is it's so awesome. Now, what was that like? I mean, it happens so fast, and there's people for 5, 10, 15 years, they grind and grind and grind in pursuit of that IFBB pro card. And when it happened that fast for you, I mean, did it happen so fast that you didn't even really know what was going on? Or what was your mindset like during those few shows as you were pursuing that pro card?
Honestly, after winning my first win, and then Vancouver happened, and Simpson, and winning, and then getting my pro card, I felt like I was unstoppable. I didn't see how big it was to be able to put IFBB Pro in your, social media bio. But now that I think about it, people come to me and they ask me, like, "Yo, what can I do to get my pro card?" Or, how'd you do it? It's like, "Yo, this is pretty big." Might not be big to people who don't understand the sport, but the ones who are in the sport, this is a huge deal. So it also made me, want to represent it more and let it be known. And, it still hasn't hit me to where I'm a pro, because when I see other pros, I'm like, "Dude, can I get a picture?" you know? So I don't, and I did it all at the Olympia, Meet the Olympians. I was walking around asking for pictures, instead of sitting in my spot. So, I mean, it didn't hit me until I want to say after the Olympia, because even, winning my pro debut in the Indy Pro, Kai Green, Jim Manuel was like, "You don't know what happened, do you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just, I won. I'm going to Olympia." And they was like, "Oh yeah, it hasn't hit him yet." Because, and it wasn't until, getting to the Olympia and then walking out and just seeing everyone, it was like, holy shit, I'm here. Like, this is crazy. And I remember when they called me out to go on stage, I actually paused a little bit. Like, the guy had to give me a little push, because I was just so like froze, like, wow, like, we're here. With the Olympia. Yeah, I don't know, you would want to wait to go to that, or
Yeah, just hang tight. We're definitely gonna get there. So, um, your pro debut, was that this year then at the Indy Pro?
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
so what year was it? 2019 or 2020 that you earned your IFBB Pro card?
So 2019, I turned pro, and we're supposed to do Tampa right after that. And that I didn't want to do it. I wanted to just grow, don't rush anything, just, grow. The following year, we were going to do New York Pro, but then, COVID happened. So I just took that year off to grow. And then around that time as well, my coach had moved from Reno to California. And so he had stopped coaching for a while. And I want to say around March, in the middle of my prep, the coach I had like disappeared. And luckily, Mike Courtney reached out to me, was like, "Hey, I'm back. Let's get the team going again. Let's do it." So he saved me just in time to get ready for Indy in 2021.
Excellent, man. Now talk about the prep then leading up to Indy. I know that was earlier in the year and everything. How did your prep go? Was it pretty smooth? Talk about maybe any trials or anything within that prep, and then talk about that pro debut, that experience you won. Just touch on a little bit of that. So talk about your prep leading up to your pro debut, and then talk about actually stepping on stage for the first time as an IFBB pro, and then you won. So just talk about all that if you don't mind.
So yeah, leading up to Indy, prep was fine. Like, the check-ins were great every time. We're progressing every time. We're growing. Nothing was going wrong. And I remember I would do fasted, and while I'm doing fasted, I would actually watch, the year previous Indy Pro when that was going on, when Noel Adami won it. And when I'm doing eating my breakfast, I'll put it on TV and I'll watch it. And it's not like, football where you can scout players or anything, but you get it lets you see what people look like, and the way they were doing things, and way you see their weaknesses, and you go out there and you expose that. And so that's what my morning consisted of, was fasted cardio watching Indy Pro, breakfast watching Indy Pro, and then getting. I want to say our problems didn't come until the end, when it was time to weigh in and make weight. We
Oh, yeah, go ahead and keep touching on that.
Yeah, so we Indy flew into Indy, and we landed, and soon the next day my coach was like, check my weight. He was like, "All right, go hit the sauna." Because I want to say a couple of days out, I was still about 218, 220. So we went to the sauna, um, go home, eat, and check-ins, weight still goes back up. All right, back to the sauna. So I'm in the sauna for 3 or 4 days straight, for about an hour, hour and a half, still having to do my workouts, still having to do cardio. And then check-ins for Indy was until 6 p.m. Well, my coach cut my food off 6 p.m. the day before. So I was no water and fasted from then until then. And I started to go to the sauna that morning of check-ins to be able to make weight. And I wanted to say I weighed in about 210, 211. And that was completely, just underwear on. And I called my coach and I told him, I was like, "Yeah, we made weight." And he goes, "Yeah, did anybody else have problems?" I was like, "No, people are walking up eating as they're, stepping on a scale, or just taking off their sweats. Like, I just stripped down completely." And so, we try to fill out as much as we can, but we couldn't get my body to come back alive. And finals happened. We had started to fill out now, started to get full again. And I remember, that whole thing going with Nathan Epler and John Jewett, because that's who the top three were, and we're fighting for those spots. And when they called Jewett for third, I was like, "Oh my gosh," what's going on? And then I wanted to call my coach then, but and then they brought me and Nathan to the middle, And for sure, I'm like, oh, it's gonna go to Nathan. It's his hometown. You know, he gives the crowd one of these, and like they go crazy. So I'm like, yeah, this is his. And so when they said my name, it was just kind of like I was like mind blown, like, oh wow, like we did this, like we won another show. Not we just won our pro debut. But so that the biggest problem was making weight. But other than that, prep was smooth. Coach checked on me daily. How you feeling? What's your, how do you think you look? Is there anything you think we should change? And tell me what his thoughts were. So I mean, we were every day just 24/7 talking all the way up into Indy Pro. But getting that win was it was big because Nathan turned pro the same year I did at the same show. So we don't have like an enemy type rivalry, but that's like my brother right there. So I one up him. So and we go back and forth. So we push each other as well.
For sure. And he got you at the Olympia, right?
Yeah, he got me at the Olympia.
And we're gonna get there. Before we get to the Olympia though, talk about mindset a little bit, if you don't mind, Tonio, because life in general, I truly believe, is all about mindset. And then once you start competing and get into that bodybuilding lifestyle and begin to live that lifestyle, I truly believe mindset is even more important, right? So do you have like any mantras? Do you have any quotes? Do you have any practices in terms of strengthening and sharpening your mind? Where do you kind of keep your mind just day to day?
Oh, when prep does get hard, like eating a fish and asparagus, there's other things that you would rather have. But if you have the mindset of I want to be great and see where my potential really is, it blocks all that out. Like right now, going to get my prep food from the Walmart in the same parking lot. There's a Carl's Jr. And it's just like, oh, I could stop right there and just grab something, but it's just if you can hold out for 3 to 5 seconds, you'll walk away from me. So as far as that, there's that, but staying determined and lifting every day when you're tired and you're drained and you don't want to move, you can go to sleep and take a nap and maybe you'll get energy later, or you can go to the gym and get it done, work hard and push for what you want, because while you're sleeping and you're resting, the guy you're going against, he's getting it in right now. So I always think about that as well. Everyone, I do 4 to 5 sets of 15 reps, and it's like, okay, so that means I can do 6 or 7 sets and just push these last couple of ones as many as I can do. Always thinking ahead of the next person. What can I do to be sure that I'll work for somebody else? And one thing I grew up, from my uncle telling me was, if you want to be successful, you have to want it as bad as you want to breathe. And you think about it, and it's like, dang, have you tried holding your breath before? So after that, it's just kind of like, yeah, it's more than life. What I get from what I've been doing with bodybuilding and what's been coming from it, I'm able to take my little dudes to, Six Flags for Halloween and they can do their haunted house, and have his own space in my apartment now. And it's helped me provide for my family. So why would I stop? Why would I do something to be less and get less? So definitely trying to push to the top so I can just give them more. Because when my time here is done and I'm gone, I don't want them to have to struggle for anything like I had to.
100%, man. I love that. It's beautiful. So, Mr. Olympia, you got to go, dude. You won your pro debut, which that's a rarity to say the least. Then you got to step on the Olympia stage. I mean, you got 10th place, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you won your pro debut. You got top 10 in your first 212 Olympia appearance. Again, a very rare occurrence. I know that's probably not where you wanted to end up, but still a very successful year. And you were talking about earlier going around getting selfies with athletes and stuff. Talk about actually being on that Olympia stage. You had Derek Lunsford and Sean Clarita and just these top level 212 guys, these champions, among others, and you got to be there, man. Like what was that actually being on stage, being backstage with those athletes? I'm sure some of the open guys were around and things like that. Just paint that picture. What was that experience like for you, Tonio?
When prejudging started, it was same thing. So leading into prejudging or whatever, the Olympia, I actually missed my weigh-ins. I didn't make weight. I had to go get in the sauna again to be able to come back and make weight, and we couldn't fill out for prejudging. So I was flat. Couldn't get a pump or anything. But being backstage and I'm pumping up, and I'm like, okay, it will last and it'll go away. But then I look over and I see Sean Clarita, and everyone talks about, oh, that dude's short, like he's small, he only weighs this much. But once you see him, up close and personal, it's like, this dude's a giant. Like he's small but big at the same time. Like it's crazy. But just when he's pumping up and looking how his muscle looks, it was one of those things was like, I see why he's at the top, where he's at. Same thing with Derek Lunsford. This is the best he's ever looked. And, seeing that up close and personal, because I thought me and Derek was around the same height. He's a little shorter, but that dude's so wide. Like his shoulders are so wide, it's crazy. I don't know how, yeah. But they just look freakish, up close and person. So when we went out and did our individuals and then we did the comparisons, the whole time, Derek Lunsford's on stage or Sean Clarita, Kamal, I'm just looking at, how these dudes pose. And I kind of like took focus off what was going on to like, yo, this is crazy. I get to watch this, from this spot, I'm watching it. And those dudes just look freaky up close and personal. Then I remember when they called my number to go out and being on stage and like looking at the stage, it looks cool, right? But when you're on stage and you're looking out, it's like, you're looking at it from another world, like from a different mountain peak. So that was just crazy. And I remember walking off stage, and my coach called me, and Sam called me, and they were like, I didn't answer them. I was kind of bummed out. And finally I called him back, and he's like, how you feeling? I was like, man, I just got my ass whooped. And he was like, no, you didn't. And I was like, yeah, I did. And he talked to me. He was like, yo, you made top 10. You still have to, get our shit together. Let's do it. And the whole time from prejudging to finals, I'm just getting messages and messages and messages. Oh, you were overlooked. And look at this comparison. I don't know what's going on. And it was just, I think people were trying to make me feel better, but it was making me feel worse. Cause it's like, dang, like, yo, what, I don't know. So there was that. But when finals come, because there's two stages. There's a prejudging stage and a final stage. And I remember people would tell me that you're an Olympian, and I would tell them I'm not an Olympian unless I take the final stage. I get on a stage for finals, then I'll say I'm an Olympian. And I remember walking backstage and seeing a pump up room, and it was like you walked into another gym. All the equipment's like perfect, it's closed off. And everyone's just back there like laying down and talking. I was back there with Nathan Epler. He was eating his prep food, and we're just sitting there talking. And then next thing you know, I look over and Reagan Grimes is right here next to me, and Nick Walker walked in, and I'm like, yo, like look at all these big names right here, So Patrick Moore, it was just crazy being around all of them. Because again, I'm forgetting that I'm a pro as well. I'm like, should I ask him for a picture now or should I wait? But once they call you, all right, it's time to start pumping up. And your heart just starts beating because it's like, oh, you about to go back on stage. And I remember pumping up, and then we went on stage and seeing the difference of the stages. That was by far the best experience like I've ever like have been through and like seen. Loved it. It makes you addicted. it makes you want to push and push just to get back to there, and want to keep going back. So they do a perfect job with that. Um, I don't know. It's like you can't explain the feeling. I wish everyone can have the chance to be on that stage to see, so they can understand what I'm talking about. But seeing it from the crowd is one thing, but seeing it from up there, it's a blessing.
Very cool, man. I greatly appreciate you touching on that, Tonio. Now, a question that I've been waiting and waiting and waiting to ask you, when we were getting this all set up, and I went to your Instagram, and your nickname is the Mutant, and you brought up Nick Walker. His nickname is the Mutant. So the question that I've been waiting to ask you is, who is the true mutant? Is it Nick or is it you?
I mean, I think until we meet each other, that would decide. But I mean, we're both mutant in our own ways. Nick is freakishly huge, and my proportions are, nice. It's symmetric, like it's crazy. And if you compare Nick to other open bodybuilders, his conditioning is, crazy. You compare me to other 212ers, I look way bigger than 212. So I mean, I think we're, it's different in its own right, but I think when it's time to, because I'm crossing over into open, when it's time to step on stage together, and I mean, there's only room for one.
That's right, man. No, I just kind of wanted to ask that just in fun, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
Now you just said that you are going to, and that was a question I was gonna ask you, because I'm like, man, like he's having trouble making all this weight. Going forward in 2022, you are going to begin to compete in the open then, is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm actually 6 days out from a show, 6 or 7. I compete next Sunday at Legion, which is open. And my coach wants to see how, you stack next to these mass monsters. And then depending on there, I guess that's what we'll decide. But I mean, I think I look bigger or look better bigger. And from guest posing with, bigger people, Josh Wade, um, he said he was 250, 250 at the time when we guest posed, and I was 225. And, just because how my structure, I look bigger than what I am. So I think that was, it can work for us. I have the aesthetic look that I'll be bringing. Conditioning is still there, so I think we have a good shot at it. I didn't want to do Legion. I wanted to grow first, and then do California State championships next year. But my coach was like, "Well, we'll do Legion and we'll do that one too." So definitely. But it's funny because I have a lot of guys from into 12 telling me, "Yeah, you should stay open. Like that's where it's at." And then there's some people in open say, "No, you don't want to get lost in open. It's much harder." So I don't know. Are you trying to help me or convince me to stay away?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty awesome that you have the opportunity to kind of go, at least at this point in your career, you have the opportunity to go both ways. I mean, I know there's been a slew of 212 guys, even Flex Lewis. He's crossed over in the past. He's done some open and then come back to 212. Obviously, now he's pursuing to step on the Olympia stage in the open, but there's been a lot of guys. So I think it's pretty awesome that you have the physique and you have that capability to kind of just test the waters. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, right? I mean, just kind of see what happens, and where the cards fall, they fall, and kind of go into 2022 after this weekend. Now, I want to touch on training a little bit. What does your training look like, just generally speaking? I know it's going to look different off season and prep, but are you a really high volume guy, just kind of going after the pump? Are you kind of a lower volume, lower reps? What does your training look like, generally speaking, Tonio?
It's kind of both. I like lifting heavy, and my coach doesn't like when I lift heavy, so he limits my weight by reps. So to tell me if you can do more than 12 reps, 10 to 12 reps, then it's okay. All right. So if I'm doing bench, I'll put 185 on, and then I'll take off the quarter, and then I add a 25 or 45, and a 45, and a 45 to where I'm at 4 or 5 finishing my last set. And I hit that for 12 reps. My coach hits me, oh, what did I say? Hey, yeah, I got my reps. And then, I dial it back down. So when I'm going back down now, it's more of a fail sets. How many can I get? Drop set. How many can I get? Drop set. And I feel I used to do the whole, 4 sets of 12 and, move on or whatever, whatnot. But when I do like squats, and all my compounders, if I build up or pyramid up and then pyramid down, I feel like I get the most growth, and it works for me. For someone else, people who've tried working out with me, it's too much volume for them, so they don't last too long. But yeah, I don't know, it works for me. And then when I'm on cables, or machines, even I don't really count my reps. It's just go.
Awesome, man. Now, moving forward, once you kind of get into a full blown off season, what are some of the areas, Tonio, that in terms of body parts that you're going to be kind of focusing on bringing up or shaping?
So after the Olympia, I was in the bathroom. I was talking to my coach, and a judge walked in, and he told me, if you look like this, or yeah, how you look right now, if you look like this at prejudging, everything would have been different. So I didn't ask him what it meant. I was just like, thank you, I appreciate that. And my coach was even like, see, we have to leave because the sauna is killing us more than it is doing. So we walk out, and I see some more judges, and I asked them, hey, what could I have done different? And I probably should have waited, because I don't think they necessarily like remembered. But one thing they said was bring wider lats. And I thought about it, from the pictures people were sending. I was like, I had some of the whitest lats on stage, and another judge said my upper chest. So I don't question it. I don't go against anything they say. It's just, all right, they want bigger, here it comes in. You want more, so here comes more. But it'll be impossible for me to keep putting on the size where they want it and not outgrow to the 12 when I've already done it.
For sure, for sure. So we're going to kind of start wrapping things up here, Tonio. I do want to touch on, you've brought up your kids a few times in our conversation. Just talk about what fatherhood has done for you and what it means to you, and kind of what you want to teach your kids, and again, kind of leave with them.
I remember I was scared when I first born. We were terrified. She didn't tell her mom until it was time, So she probably was a little bit more scared than I was. But I remember her trying to hide her stomach from my mom, and my mom looked at me. She goes, "You got something you want to tell me?" And I looked, like, "Did you tell her anything?" She's like, "No." I said, "No, I don't." And the whole time I'm looking at my mom, I'm looking at her hands. I was like, I don't know if she's about to smack me right now. So finally I tell her, and she just starts laughing. She goes, "I already knew." And she starts questioning everything, like, "Have you guys done this and done that? And what about, doctor's appointments?" And we're like, "Wait, what? What are you talking about?" So, because I want to say she was about 6, 7 months and hadn't seen a doctor yet. Yeah. So my mom like got that all squared away, and then she started talking to me about working, and I'm like, mine going crazy, and I'm like, and she's telling me how hard it is to have a kid, and I thought she was trying to scare me, but she was trying to prepare me. And so I started working. My uncle that I was talking about, he actually got me a job with him, welding at his sheet metal company. And at this point, I'm fresh out of high school. So 2009, 2010, this young kid making, 17, 18 bucks an hour, working 40 hours a week. I'm like, I'm rich, So we're loving it. But as, it happened, that life that I was living before, where I was going out every weekend and, drinking with friends and, getting into fights and, living that life, no matter how much, his mom would tell me, to stop, and it's not good, it's wrong, whatever. It was like didn't hit me until he was here, and then that's when everything just stopped. So I would have friends call me, I would just ignore their calls. I know what they're calling me for. They want to hang out, whatever, but it changed everything when he was born, he was here, and like I told you earlier, everything I've been through, I can teach them about that and let them know that it's a waste of time. Nothing good comes from it. There's no positive. There's no moving forward from it. So don't waste your time with it. And then as far as like with the bodybuilding thing, and from where I am now, from where I was, I think that teaches them in itself. Anyone who knows me, and knows what I've been through, and the type of person I was, when they see me now, they even write me now and they say, it's crazy seeing, who you are now from what you were. I had a friend saying, like, we're OGs now. What you talking about? He's like, the way we were living, we shouldn't be alive today, So it teaches them that in itself. So I mean, it's just telling them the story, and they'll catch on.
Absolutely, man. It's so beautiful, dude. Just your story is very powerful, Tonio. In regards to bodybuilding, what do you have any goals? Do you have any future plans? Kind of what do you want to do with bodybuilding? Where do you want to take this?
I'm 30 years old, still feel good, I'm healthy. And honestly, there's all these 7-time Olympians, and I want to break that. I don't want to tie Olympia records, I want to break it. And there's always a first for everything. And right now, Nick Walker's in the way because he's doing his thing, so I got to catch up first. But I want to take whatever it gives. I can build from it. I can, open up my own gym from it. I used to work for a children's hospital, a mental hospital, and working with boys unit, just seeing the stuff that they've been through, here, listening to their story. I'm able to tell them my story, and we're able to connect. So that's also something I wanted to do, was opening up something to where kids don't have to be out, in the street or anything. If they want to come be distracted or be busy, there's a place for them to come to. And that's something we don't have here.
Love it, man. Love it. Let's kind of just wrap things up with this. Do you have any kind of words of wisdom or any words as there are going to be some younger people listening to this, Tonio, some people that are kind of just getting into bodybuilding, just kind of starting off in this lifestyle? Do you have any words of wisdom? Do you have any words of experience? Do you have any words that you would want to share with the younger listener or the individual that's kind of just getting into bodybuilding?
Yeah, I remember getting into bodybuilding, and Microchip was someone that I idolized, and he was strong, and his physique, he looked good. And people would tell me, like, dude, you're starting to look like that. And that stuff is, the person I was aiming for to be like. But then it's, okay, now I'm there. Now what? Just keep pushing forward. I had a kid message me on Instagram, and he said it, I want a physique just like yours. And, I told him, like, I appreciate the words, but don't go for one like mine. Go for one better than mine, So be better. And like I said earlier, if you really want it, you gotta want it as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. Don't let no one tell you you can or can't do something. I've had and still have so many people telling me, it's a waste of time to try to go in the open. It was a waste of time to do Indy. You're not gonna do good at Olympia. And I proved them wrong on everything, I think that's all I need to hear is, you told me I can't, I'm gonna show you I will. So
Love it, man. That's so good. Tonio, I just want to thank you again for taking some time out of your full schedule, man. You've got bodybuilding, you've got family, you're in prep. First of all, I just want to say good luck, at the upcoming show next weekend. I'm excited, man. I haven't really followed you a whole lot leading up to our conversation, but just having this conversation with you, man, hearing your story, I'm definitely excited just to continue to follow you and support you on social media. But thank you so much for taking the time to chop it up with me, sharing your story. It's definitely going to impact some people. Before I wrap us up here, do you want to just share like your Instagram, talk about maybe your sponsors? I know you have an awesome nutrition sponsor, and then I'll close this out from there.
Yeah, I appreciate you, reaching out, let me get on your podcast and able to tell my story to people who need to hear it. Like you said, it will touch some people, and that's all that matters. Yeah, I'd like to thank my coach, Mike Courtney, for taking me this far. Celsius, that's one of my sponsors as well, and Tight Nutrition is another one of my sponsors. It was actually one of my first sponsors to help me out with everything that's going on. And yeah, my Instagram is Tonio Mutant Burton. And yeah.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Tonio, you're an awesome dude, man. I can just feel the positive energy, and the light coming from you. And I'm excited to, like I said, support you in the future, just through social media, man, and following your journey. Listeners, thank you so very much once again for listening to the podcast, watching the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Your listening ears are always greatly appreciated. 2 favors I would ask of all of you that are tuning in, listening to Behind the Muscle podcast. If you haven't done so already, please go hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's where I release all of these episodes first. I'm just grinding hard, getting all kinds of episodes released, and YouTube is where they're released first. And then the second favor, please take this episode of Tonio's, super humble guy, an awesome dude. The future is bright. I know he's going to keep working hard. He's going to keep grinding. There's a lot ahead for Tonio. Would you take this episode, please, as you found great value in Tonio's story, share it on all of your social media platforms. Make sure you tag Tonio, tag Behind the Muscle, so that we know that you guys listened. You guys found value in this episode. And that's also a great way for other people to find the podcast and be positively impacted through the athlete stories that are being shared on Behind the Muscle podcast. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.